Hello, my name is Curry Bird, recovered alcoholic and recovering human. I'm the host and founder of the Recovery My Way podcast, a podcast about how I recovered from alcoholism by realizing one simple truth, that I could not drink. As a result of this moment of clarity, I have not found it necessary to drink alcohol to change the way I feel since July the 20th of 1997. I am also the co-founder of the Freedom Through Choice Foundation, a nonprofit that focuses on helping humanity reclaim their personal power and to realize the power of their own choices and how choices affect their life every day. I have also come to know that I am not special, unique, or different just because I drank irresponsibly. I'm no different than anyone that I have met or will ever meet because of this. I am on my personal journey just as you are, the human journey. I would like to share my journey with you and hope that something I've experienced on my road to recovery just might help another human being who still struggles with any addiction. I owe my life to my addiction because for me it was a fast track to self-discovery. I would like to welcome you to the Recovery My Way podcast. How's it going, everybody? This is going to be an episode, well, I've sort of thought about it a little bit. It's going to be all about me. It's, so Deb's not going to be joining me on this one because it really is all about me. Just like, her stuff and everybody else's stuff is all about them. Once you made a choice to stop drinking, it can be whatever outside force that happened there for you to decide to get to this point in your life. This is where probably for the first time in my life anyway, where I was really willing to be consciously aware of and be accountable in changing my life, in doing something different than what I had been doing for almost 20 years on a daily basis. I believe for me at that one time, I had decided to be accountable for the first time and take some ownership in my life and control the direction instead of allowing something outside of me direct that change. It was my turn to do that. This accountability, this change, it's not just about drinking like a lot of things weren't. I focused on drinking or being an alcoholic. It had nothing to do with the drinking. The drinking was just a way I coped with all that stuff, man. It was nothing else. At this point, I'm most likely more aware, consciously aware about things that are going on in my life than any time I've ever been since before or since I had stopped drinking or started drinking during all those years. This was where Curry had to get a hold of his business and get his shit right, because blaming things on others, that ship had done sailed. Selfish and self-centered is not an all-out bad thing. You are the only person you can change. Nobody else can change you. Nobody. There can be forces that can sway maybe how you will respond to something or how you're going to act, but true change can only be chosen by you internally, lasting change. If you find yourself in a treatment center, if you find yourself in an AA meeting, wherever you find yourself at, your choices are what put you there. It could be a consequence of that choice that put you there, but nonetheless, your choice has put you where you find yourself at today, no matter where you're at. Just at this moment right now, you're listening to this podcast. Where you sit today is based off choices you've made in the past. This is sort of what I mean when it's all about me. It never was about anybody else, ever. Now it's time for me to really get selfish and self-centered about changing my life. Not about destroying my life, but about changing my life. When I was drinking, I thought it was about me, and it was, and it was a selfish and self-centered, I guess, energy there too. But it was only about me in the sense that I didn't care about others. I didn't care about what they had or what they thought or how they interpreted what I said or did. It was like, F everybody else. I'm going to take care of my business, my drinking, or whatever else I was going to do. And it didn't It didn't have anything to do with the other people in a positive way. The biggest point I'm wanting to get across is it's all about me. It's where the blame stops and the true accountability begins. You can't expect long-term change until you make a deep down choice and have a desire to make that happen, I believe. During my addiction, during my alcoholism, I was escaping. Alcohol was my coping mechanism and gave every bit of control that I might have thought I would have had to alcohol. It was about alcohol. It definitely wasn't about me. I thought it was. All this power that I gave away to a chemical for so many years. It was my choice and nobody else's, man. There are a lot of different ways or beliefs that people think about how these things are. But that's just my belief. Now that I've decided to quit drinking or doing shit that's going to ruin your life, I had to think about focusing on longer term goals. Instead of using alcohol or drugs as a short term escape from just dealing with everyday stuff. This is just life. How these things evolve over time, there are a lot of people still trying to figure all that bullshit out. That's not my job. My job is to figure me out. I was told one time, once you figure out that you can't drink alcohol responsibly, then there's like another world. That was it. It's just that simple. I've been doing that now for over 24 years. Let's put it that way. And just that one small thing that I came to realize is that I couldn't drink alcohol responsibly. There's a lot of things that people can't do responsibly until they decide that they're going to make a change on it, or they do it responsibly. Whatever. Only you know what's inside your mind, and only you know what's going to work for you. One of the biggest things I believe that changed when I stopped drinking is I put the kibosh on instant gratification. I slowed it down. Everybody's addicted to instant gratification. I believe that the bottom line is that I created over a long period of time, I created this addiction. I created my addiction. And I believe that I was the only one that was going to turn that around. I was the only one who had the power to change that permanently. My addiction was nothing more than a coping mechanism, and a damn destructive one at that produced one negative consequence after another, over and over and over. When I look at it from it being a coping mechanism, then that puts it back on me, which I believe is where it's at to begin with. We all grow up where we grow up. We put up with the stuff. We see whatever we see. It works out however it works out. But somewhere along the line, if your ass is dragging on the ground, you're the only one that can stand up and pull it off the ground. You can get nudges. You can get interventions. You can do all these different things that can happen for you. You have to choose what the hell you want to do and how you want to do it, and make your mind up and get on with it and quit bullshitting. It really is all about me. There are lots of different schools of thought on this thing, right? We all had mental, bad things that happen, trauma, mental anguish. Pain is a physical thing. Suffering is in my mind. That's my belief. How I react to anything around me that happens to me or to someone else is all my choice. It's up to me how I respond to these things. The suffering, the mental suffering, and all those things, and the misery that I chose over and over and over again was my damn choice. Now, there are a lot of different scenarios there. I mean, sometimes we go through depression. I've gone through depression and still have some depression every now and then. But I don't sit around as long as I've done before and sit there and, feel sorry for myself. I get up and I realize, hey, you can wait on this shit to change as long as you want, but you need to get up off your ass and go do something. Take some positive action to do something differently than what you used to do. I'm used to sitting around being depressed, waiting for the world to fix my ass, or God, or whoever else. And it's an inside job. I do believe that we've got We've got more help than we could ever imagine in the old universe. I call on assistance to help me out, but it's still about me. It's nobody else's job to fix curry. If I'm having difficulty with things, I need to find the courage eventually, sooner or later. Sometimes we don't, and make that change myself. Suffering is, I mean, I have to put that cake in the oven every day. I wake up, I have to decide, am I going to create, pain and my, suffering in my mind today, depressed today? Sometimes you do, man. I've gone months depressed about something. And the way I did something about it most often was not doing a goddamn thing and just sitting there being more depressed and feeling sorry for myself. And these things are hard, man. You sit back and this is just hard shit to process. And everybody goes through that. It's not isolated to people with addictions or people with, for God knows what else. I mean, there's so many addictions now. I mean, I guess the bigger part is what the fuck is everybody running from? Why is everybody leaving, wanting to leave themselves, to not know themselves? What are they running from in the world, man? I mean, oh my God. This was the first time that I had really gotten honest and said, I got a problem with drinking. I mean, there was no bullshit about it. I mean, I had an issue. I had to fucking fix it. I had to pull my head out of my ass and turn it around and get going. One saying I'd heard somewhere, and it's been said several different ways, I believe. It says, life's about seeing what is there, not what I want to see. And a lot of what I had saw was how the world was against me, and definitely not what I could do to change it. So, living in, day after day of believing that you don't have a choice in what you drink or what you eat or what you do, it takes a lot to work yourself back out of that, because those are habits. And I did those. I drank every day for almost 20 years. That's a freaking habit if there's ever been one. But I had to change my mind and decide that I was going to stop that shit. A lot of times there's family dramas that we grow up in that create areas for blame and shame and guilt and God knows whatever else, right? I am not obligated or cursed to carry around the choices that my family made. You hear the thing, he's got 4 or 5 alcoholics in his family. Well, that was their fucking choice. My dad drank a lot, and that didn't have a fucking thing to do with me. It really didn't. Come to find out, there were things that had happened to him early on that were traumatic to him. He didn't know how to process it. He used it to cope. It's just that simple. The predisposed, I just don't buy into that bullshit all the way. I'm sure there are genetics, there's memory. These things get processed from generation to generation. And they're talked about like they're gospel. And each individual is the only person that can change their history. If I choose to believe that I'm going to be an alcoholic and doomed for the rest of my life to be one, just because my dad was one or his uncle was one or somebody on my mother's side was one, I mean, how can you change something if you allow yourself to believe that? I guess in summary, I've gone on enough about this, for goodness sakes. Bottom line is, I'm not obligated to carry the choices of my family history. And I owe it to myself and my family and the world to realize these so-called flaws for what they are. They're just choices and old memories, most of which had nothing to do with me. It's my choice to continue to carry this generational karma, I guess you could call it. Until then, I continue to choose to be a victim. It doesn't mean that these flaws are inherently positive or negative. It's how I deal with them that makes the difference. It's up to me to see these things as either bondage or as advantages or gifts. If I see these things as bondage, it means that I still identify with these so-called flaws. When I choose to see them as a gift or an advantage, I have taken their power away. So long as I believe that this family history or society's beliefs or whoever's beliefs define who I am, I can never expect to transform myself. Transformation is about the individual. It's about me. It's not about the family. It's not about anything else. My addiction is a memory that has faded away, not unlike any memory. My past is nothing more than a memory. It's not a life sentence. Mental memory can either be bondage or an advantage. The choice is mine. All About Me means that I've made a choice to be conscious of my choices and how they affect me, others, and all things around me. My thoughts, emotions, and ideas, opinions, and actions must now be more conscious. All of these things have consequences, to me, either internally or externally, or others, or the world in general. Now mindfulness takes on a whole new meaning. In other words, my future is created based on my being conscious of all of these things today, right now. I can alter my future by performing the right kind of actions in the present moment today. Then I can unwrap these old gifts later. Addiction, if I choose, is nothing more than a memory of the past. Being human means you're always changing and evolving. It is how resistant I am to change that determines my future. I'm glad to be here with you guys. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share in this podcast, and I hope these things make sense to someone, because these things have helped me for a long time. And I change the way I believe almost a daily basis sometimes, because today I'm a little less resistant to change or growing. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Recovery My Way podcast, a podcast about how I have somehow managed not to drink alcohol since July the 20th of 1997, and I did it my way. So until we meet again, take care and safe travels.